Squishies! Welcome back to another vlog. This is CatGhost, episodes 9 to 12. And you do not want to know how many takes it took to say that without slipping into CatGhost Coast to Coast. Which is weird because I've seen like half of one episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Anyway, so I know I've talked about the balance between humor and horror in past vlogs about CatGhost, but that really is the main thing to talk about in regards to CatGhost. It's very close to being an ARG. It's a multimedia thing, and I'm only looking at the video component. I'm not playing the games because I just don't have time to. I'm reading the wikis about some of the games, but I kind of didn't do that this time, just because in the past it hasn't been that relevant, at least not to what I talk about. Because the thing about ARGs is, you're trying to unravel the mystery. They're all about paranoid viewing, and that's just not generally the approach I prefer. So let's talk about humor and horror some more, because I do have some new thoughts on it. It's been a year or more since I did any CatGhost, so I've had some time to have some new thoughts. I've actually been writing about it lately for a project that you will be finding out about in the near future, I hope. And one of the things I've been thinking about is, okay, there's the benign violation theory of humor. I've probably explained it in a past video, but to summarize very quickly. The theory goes, humor happens when we recognize a violation. Something is out of the ordinary. Something is not happening the way our brains have been programmed by our life experiences to expect it to happen. It could be someone violating a social norm. It could be something happening that is unexpected or surprising. It could be something happening that appears not to obey the laws of physics as we know them. It could be a lot of things. And there's a part of our brain that is just instantly, in response to any unexpected event, any violation, there's a part of our brain that immediately goes, threat or not. And if it recognizes the violation as benign, the resulting release of tension is what we call humor. That's the theory. This, incidentally, is why racist jokes aren't funny anymore. Because there used to be a whole vast genre of humor, which is still basically the only genre conservatives understand, where that is different, is the violation, but it's weaker than me, is what makes it benign. Essentially, the existence of marginalized people is in itself funny when you have that perspective. If you do not see something being different from you as inherently a violation, or if you do not see power differentials as benign, that's not funny to you. And there's a lot fewer people who think that way these days. That's pretty much what it comes down to. In general, this is why humor evolves with time, is because either people start to see something that used to be considered benign as malign, and therefore it's no longer funny, or people start to expect something, and then the violation isn't there anymore. When you hear the same kinds of jokes over and over, they stop being funny because they're not a violation anymore, they're a new pattern that your brain recognizes. Trust me, I'm getting to CatGhost. So what I've been thinking about is what happens the other way. What happens when your brain goes malign? And there's a few different responses. Sometimes it kicks you into the fight or flight reflex and you have straight up fear. That's what, for example, jump scares do to you, or actual threats. But I'm more interested in what happens when you recognize something as a violation, but it's at a remove. It's a violation that's happening in fiction or at a distance, or you're just hearing about it. Like, it's not the immediate visceral experience. And I think what happens then, and this is also what happens with like subtler violations that your brain is unable to flag as benign and therefore flags as malign, because I think brains generally lean toward malign unless confident it's benign. If in terms of at least the unexpected. With the expected, I think brains do the other way around. When something is familiar, we assume it's safe unless we have reason to think it's not. With there, I think you get something more like, I'm going to mispronounce some German now, the Unheimlich, which is usually translated as uncanny, but it literally means unhomelike. It's the feeling that things are... It's a feeling of creepiness because things aren't quite right. And that's the feeling that CatGhost rides. See, I told you we'd get there eventually. That's the sensation that CatGhost is constantly trying to produce. And the way it does it is by taking... The way a lot of things do it is by taking a benign, familiar circumstance and putting in a little hint of wrongness. So, using the uncanny valley, or taking a familiar setting and having strange things happening there. Like Haunted House is a good example of something that uses that. Like haunted house movies tend to use that a lot. What CatGhost is doing is something different, though. What CatGhost does is it's all violation, but it's starting from a base of benign violation. It's starting from a base of cartoon. These shapes are distorted, these characters are doing weird and nasty things to each other, but it's all behind a filter of being cartoonish and therefore unthreatening. They're cute. And cute trips the benign part of the brain, usually. But when you take the familiar signifiers of being benign themselves and start applying violations onto them, that's a really effective way of achieving the Unheimlich. I'm just going to go with uncanny, even though I really feel like the unhomelike, the literal unhomelike, is actually, there's a nuance there that uncanny a little bit misses. But just know that that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about when I say uncanny. Something that really, for example, a little bit of an echo on children singing a song is creepy. It gets used in stuff all the time because it's creepy. And it's creepy because it is taking something that is familiar and benign and making it a little bit wrong. And it's specifically taking, in the case with like CatGhost, it's taking something that is full of violations, because cartoons violate all kinds of stuff from the normal expectations of how we see the world, but we're also predisposed to seeing cartoons as benign, and especially when they're cute. That's why they're so effective as a means of doing comedy, and why so many cartoons have either are straight up comedies or have a lot of comedy in them, is because it's a very effective medium for it for that reason. But I mean, heck, that's what Itchy and Scratchy is parodying in The Simpsons, is the degree of violence that is still funny rather than horrific because it's animated. And because the characters doing it are cute. I mean, it's The Simpsons, so they're cute grotesque, but cute. That's what CatGhost is playing with, and it's really interesting as it does it. At the same time, in this run of episodes, in episodes 9 to 12, it seems to be moving towards coherent. Pieces are coming together. It's clearly headed for its ending. I watched one additional video called Warmth, which is apparently not actually part of the CatGhost series. It was just an announcement that the creator was having financial difficulties and so had set up a Patreon. CatGhost, and in that they said that CatGhost has 6 episodes left, and I just watched 4 of them. And they're definitely headed towards something. It's starting to be possible to put together what's going on. Increasingly, it seems like Bethany was someone very close to Nara. Probably, I'm thinking her mother. Nara was hanging out with someone, probably Elon, and Bethany probably killed her and Nara. There's some hints here and there in like freeze frame stuff and in the games that they were executed for witchcraft, Elon and Nara. Which would explain why there's this like demonic entity possessing people going around. It's probably something they called up and it got out of their control, and then Bethany and probably Gideon killed them. The fact that Bethany and Gideon were like seated at the table with Nara in the mashed potato scene with the potatoes that weren't mashed really suggests to me that Gideon is probably her dad. He's very daddish in a stolid sort of way. You know, like it's starting, even if those conclusions are all wrong, it's starting to be possible to draw conclusions, which for anything that relies that heavily on paranoid viewing and not and deliberately obscuring stuff means we're headed for an ending. And as it does, as it starts to make sense, it stops being as much of a violation. Even if the sense I'm making of it is wrong, the fact that I am figuring it out makes it less creepy. It's the same problem as a familiar joke. It's less funny because you're used to it and it's therefore no longer a violation. Running gags are a little different. With running gags, the violation is the repetition, because you don't normally tell a joke over and over again in a short period of time. So that is the unexpected element, And what makes it benign is the knowledge that it's a joke and you've seen it before and it's therefore safe. It's essentially a form of meta-humor. So that's how meta-humor and anti-humor work. The violation is breaking the normal patterns of a joke. Anyway. As it starts to come together, as it starts feeling solvable, it stops feeling like a violation, and that makes it less creepy. And it doesn't really have any other registers to go for. I don't know these characters at all, because I've had so little context for anything happening to them. I've gotten no real sense of who they are, and honestly it seems to shift from episode to episode. And there seems to be some late attempts to give them some depth, but because I have no idea what they're talking about most of the time, it's not really there. And so I don't really connect to them in any other way. So they've got like drama stuff going on and like friendships forming and falling apart and some kind of convoluted relationship between Gideon and Bethany, and I just don't care. Don't care is a strong term. I don't have any emotional response to it because I don't have any context for it. And so there's nothing really to take the place of that creepiness. So this run was just, as a result, not as interesting as the past runs that I've done. It's still pretty good, but I think that's about it. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!